So we're going to do a couple of different things here. We're going to make a couple of different little sites, starting with a real simple JavaScript, what we call a loop. We'll explain what loops are in just a second here, but for now, I'm just going to start off same way as always. Call this JavaScript 6. Oh, make sure we have the head tag here. Choose all files here. Once again, call this JavaScript 6, last name, .html. And flat down here. Here we go. All right, good so far. Okay, so loops. Essentially what loops are is just creating a function and having the function repeat itself up to a certain point, right? Say for instance, if I wanted to do this number here, if I wanted to do what we did before, we had like the x divided by 1 or x divided by 12, we could create these little math problems inside JavaScript. We could create variables. I mean, we can put a little operator on them with a multiplication, division, subtraction, addition, all those things. But if we wanted just to have a series of numbers presented to us, we can just we can do a couple of things. We can do what's called a loop here. So I'm just going to create a paragraph here, and I'm going to say text goes here, just to give us something to put in there for now. Let me just refresh this. Okay, so text. So whatever we produce inside our script is going to go inside that little paragraph, and we'll give that paragraph an ID in a second. So let's open up our script tag and close it out as well. In fact, I'll give myself some space down here just to make sure. I'll close out my HTML as well. Okay, so just to make sure script is up there, I'll give myself some space. Here we go. So script, starting with our variables. So we'll give ourselves a variable. We'll call it text. And our text is going to be set to equal nothing. And the reason why we have these little quotation marks is because with different variables, we have different kinds of data types. We have Booleans, which are either true or false. Remember our data encoding from before. We also have numbers like 1 or even like pi or even things like, 2.3, all those things, those are numbers. We also have strings. So strings would basically be, 3 would be just like the actual visible number string here, as opposed to like the word like, John, something like that. That would be a string, right? And so we have a string, which is simply just blank, right? That's all it is for now. So it's essentially, it equals a string. So it doesn't actually have any value of itself, only as far as what we have kind of assigned to it. And we're also going to have a variable called I. Now we talked about this before when we did our clock, I want to say. No, we didn't, actually. We'll talk about it later. So this is what a loop is, right? Essentially, I have 3 statements. I have the initial value of the variable I, which is going to be 0. I have the basically the constraint for I, which is going to be like less than 5, for instance. I could hit less than 10, it's fine too. And then I have basically what happens next after after the first operation's done. In this case, I is going to increase by 1. That's what this little plus means. It means it's going to increment, it's going to increase by 1. So this is essentially our argument for our loop. We have these 3 sort of statements. Basically, these 2 statements are optional, but if we want just to keep it from going on forever, we're going to give it sort of some constraints. We're going to tell it what it is to begin with, all right, what it is at the end, and then what we're going to do in between each operation. Each time we give this little formula. And the formula, the function is going to be put below it. This is going to be our little function block here. And basically, we're just going to take text and we're going to give it an additional value. So we already have one value, which is equal to this string here. And so if I'm going to basically add an additional value, that's why we have this little plus equals sign. We used that yesterday with the clock, if you did the clock here. But so plus equals, so I'm basically going to add it some to another string, basically the number is, and then I'll give a little space. All right, so this is another string here. plus I, which is going to be set to whatever this is right here, and then we're going to plus a, in this case, a break, right? And we'll put that in quotes, so it'll be a string as well. Right, and we'll put that up. All right, so below that, inside our script, we'll access the document object model. And we'll call it an ID, and you can name it whatever you like. You can name it, call it text if you want to. X the inner HTML, and we'll have that equal to basically the variable text. All right, so we can use it. This is getting a little confusing. Let's just change it from text to say, I don't know, number, right? And we'll cause our ID to be equal to number up here in our paragraph. All right. So let's see what happens here. Here we go. And then we'll just. All right, here we go. So as you can see, basically it starts with 0, right, and then it stops before it equals 10, right? And so if I were to say like maybe I equals 10. I got confused. I'll just say equals less than. All right, so there you go. Essentially what we have is just a loop that gives it a constraint and gives it a thing that's going to happen. Basically, it's going to happen is it's going to increase by 1. So in this case, I could reverse it here. I could say I equals 0, I is greater than 0, I equals 10, I is greater than 0, and then we can just take a little, instead of increasing it by 1 each time, we'll just decrease it. Two minus signs there. We'll save that and we'll refresh it, and there it is. So it starts from 10 and goes down to 1.